My name is Dan Ray, R-E-Y, not R-A-Y. You're never going to find my profile if you misspell my last name. First name's pretty easy. Last name is somewhat unique. I've been a Microsoft certified trainer, an MCT, for 25 years now. And I spent about half of that time as a Microsoft employee. So I'm also a proud member of the Microsoft Alumni Network. We just had an event in Redmond for Microsoft's 50th anniversary. So we're celebrating Microsoft's 50th anniversary. I am a Microsoft Tech community member, and I've been an MVP in Surface, which I'm using for our presentation today, as well as Copilot. And I have also had Microsoft Teams as an award category as well. So that is a little bit about me and my tech journey thus far. I've got one response. Thank you for filling out. We've got somebody that's been on LinkedIn for over 10 years, and they post monthly on the platform. So if I can find my LinkedIn window here. When you start using LinkedIn professionally, one thing you will notice is that you have an opportunity to introduce yourself. That is through a photo. As you can see here, I've got a photo, and it's a very recent photo. And then I'm also using one of the LinkedIn premium benefits that I'm sure not everybody here has. And what that allows you to do is a carousel of up to 5 background photos. So I have a couple from LinkedIn offices. I have a couple that were montages of various events in my life and people that I've met. And you can have up to 5 of these. So when you edit your background photo, you can change that. Your profile has the setting for you to actually put information about what you do in a headline. So that can be your job description, that can be a little more creative. And you can list where you work as well as where you are currently located. And your contact info is available. All of these types of settings are things you set up typically when you start on LinkedIn. But the reason I asked about the posting was my original book was called LinkedIn 365 with a hashtag. Since having that book published, I have changed the title of the book to Post Every Week, Comment Every Day. And the main reason for this change was because LinkedIn is now much more focused on your interaction with other people than necessarily you posting every single day. So on the company page that is currently called Post Every Week, Comment Every Day, but is still available or found at a URL that I'll put in the chat here. That y'all have access to it to follow along. The LinkedIn 365 page takes you to LinkedIn 365, which has now been renamed Post Every Week, Comment Every Day. And the main reason for this change, if I view it as a member, instead of the administrator or the owner of the page, you'll see what it looks like, hopefully for you, where you can see posts and you can see any jobs and people associated with it, and get a little bit of an overview of the book. The reason I changed the title somewhat recently was because LinkedIn, through their lawyers, contacted me and did not like the title that I chose for my book. And they basically very kindly asked, hey, can you go through and change all this, take the book down, retitle the book, change any references to groups or use of LinkedIn 365 as a title. And so obviously as a hashtag, it's still perfectly fine to use LinkedIn 365, but they have asked that I rethink the title of the book. And I was already rethinking the title of the book because LinkedIn 365 came out of the idea of posting every single day. And for most people, I imagined when I created those questions for you to fill out, that most people would struggle in saying, I post every single day to LinkedIn. Even if you post every single weekday, Monday through Friday, that's less than every single day, right? It's still not Saturdays and Sundays. Many people and many studies show the LinkedIn best times to post. And the one that I'm going to look for is Sprout Social, which is out of Chicago, Illinois. And the best times to post on LinkedIn are Tuesday through Thursday between 9 and 2 p.m. with peak engagement around 10 to 11 and during lunch hours. So this is straight from Microsoft Copilot as an answer. And Sprout Social has a graphic representation of this that I'll share with you here. And this was one of the things that led me to my journey of thinking about writing a book about LinkedIn and the best times to post. So when you think about posting on LinkedIn, the first thing that you might struggle with is, what do I have to share? When you start a post, it says, what do you want to talk about? And it gives you some suggestions of things that you could utilize in your post, like creating a poll, asking a question, and getting people to vote on it. You can share a document. You can share an image or media, a video. You can create an event. So you could say, hey, this Saturday, I want to go ahead and allow people to have a conversation, or I want to invite them to a certain feature. When I look at our survey results, we have LinkedIn Learning as one of the features that folks have used. And we have maybe one other question in the poll. So we'll wait and see if other people fill out the poll here. But what I could do with a poll is, instead of having to have a question, or sorry, a post that I am providing to everybody in my network, one thing that I can do with a poll is ask others in my network about something that I'm curious. And one of the first things that I remember asking on LinkedIn was, what happens if I find a post? I'm going to use Ayaka as an example. So I just saw, Ayaka, one of your posts fairly recently at the very top of my feed. And now that I've refreshed it a couple times, it was this one. 130 attendees joining the MCT Summit this week. And so that post, I have the ability to repost. And in the past, when you reposted, you didn't have a repost only. You had to repost with thoughts. You had to write something. And then the repost appeared on your feed to your followers and to your network, your connections on LinkedIn. And I wondered, does the original person see how many people in my network saw their post? And so I posed that as a question. And I don't remember if I used a poll or if I just used that as a question to write one of my first LinkedIn posts. Was what happens when you have this, instead of just commenting on Ayaka's post, I decide to repost the post. And so if you're aware of what happens when you repost or when you repost with comments, feel free to put it in the chat. It looks like we have several people in the audience, so you are welcome to put responses in the chat, questions in the chat. We also have a survey where you can pose questions to me. So I'll bring up that QR code here once again, real quick. We'll go to messages. I'm using the version of LinkedIn that is a app in the App Store. It works on Windows devices that are running x64 or Intel-based processors. So if you're on one of the brand new Surfaces, the LinkedIn app is going to install like it's available to you, and then it's not going to open. And I thought this was a bug with the app. Turns out the app is only available on Intel-based computers running Windows. So feel free to fill out the survey. And the survey might be another thing that I could do besides doing a poll, right? Instead of just doing a poll, which is somewhat limited on LinkedIn, you can now have up to 5 options in a question. And sometimes I've seen the 5, and sometimes it looks like I'm only seeing the 4 options. I'm not sure what's going on there. It might be that I haven't filled out any of the information. But typically I see 5 options when I do a poll. I've recently done a poll. So if I go to my view profile in LinkedIn and we go back to my activity and posts, I can see that I was live this morning. I made a post about the fact that I'm speaking with you all. And then I made a post about a YouTube channel that I have set up with my fiance Charity. She actually set up the channel, but I am featured on it with her. And it's called Love After 40. And then I've got a post from work. And before that, I have a guess the no-show rate. What the no-show rate is when you give somebody a free exam. And this is still open for voting. So I'm going to go ahead and copy a link to that post. And I'm going to toss it into the chat. Since we're all Microsoft certified trainers, presumably, this might be of interest to all of you, what the actual no-show rate is when you offer a student a free exam. What do you think the no-show rate is? There are choices like 20% of the people, 40% of the people, higher. I don't remember if there was lower than 20%. I might have put in 10% on there. But I used 5 options. 5 options were available to me. And if you have only 5 options, you might want to have the one that's other and then suggest that they comment. I've also seen people leverage on LinkedIn reaction polls. So we now have 6 different reactions that we can give a post. We can like a post, we can celebrate a post, we can support a post, love, laugh, or find it funny or insightful. So you can use those same 6 reactions to run a reaction poll. So instead of using the 5 options that you can do for people to vote, and you have a 2-week or shorter window for people to post, you can use these reaction posts and they exist as long as you want. So we have lots of different ways, and it looks like we've got It looks like maybe it's the number of. Oh, sorry. I couldn't read that. It's you're guessing 40%. And that's actually what I heard from David Weeks, was that 40% was the no-show rate that they were seeing. So you can see that most people thought that it was much higher that have voted so far in the poll. And the poll, I thought you had 400 something, which might have been related to the impressions of the post right above it. But you can see that my poll got 702 impressions, meaning that 702 people on LinkedIn have seen this poll. However, only 22 votes. There we go. So we had somebody else that voted 20%, hoping that the free vouchers were used often, right? But from David Weeks, who works at Microsoft and presumably has information about it, I believe he said 40% was the no-show rate of people that were not taking the exam at all. And then he also mentioned that a number of people weren't passing the exams when they did show up. And I don't remember what that percentage was, but I think it was even higher than the 40%. You know, the people that did attend were not typically passing the free exam that they had been given because it's free. You know, they thought of it as, well, you know, this is maybe my opportunity to just see where I'm at, you know, just take the exam, not study, not prepare. Maybe I've never taken an exam before, so why not just take it? Which is valid. If it's a free exam, you know, I can see where some of those thoughts come from. But one thing that I found pretty early on with LinkedIn was sometimes new features that they have announced or given you access to utilize do much better than other features that have been around for a long time, like being able to post a video is something that LinkedIn has had for a long time, but they're really leaning into featuring the videos. So for instance, if I look at an image post that I've posted, several different posts with images, an image post for me typically does pretty good. So it gets a pretty good amount of engagement. Usually an engagement would be right at the bottom here of a post. I don't see it in the LinkedIn app. Let's see if we bring up the browser, if we can see my engagement on a graphic post. We'll use the one with Grimace from McDonald's because that's one of my favorites recently that I posted. So we'll go back to my images, we'll go to the Grimace, and we don't see the actual information here, at least, about how the post did. We'll go back to posts here. But you can see 163 impressions, 189 impressions, 38 impressions, 84 impressions. So sometimes my posts with pictures do fairly well. Sometimes they don't do so well. And this is primarily, from what I've found, from posting every single day. My post for the poll did pretty well in a pretty short amount of time. I posted it one day ago, but you can see I posted several other things since then. Now, LinkedIn also gives everybody, whether you have a premium membership or not, that was one of my questions in my planned form. I don't remember if it made the form or not, was whether you were using premium or not. If you go to sales/SSI, I'll put this in the chat. LinkedIn gives you a social selling score. And so if you are using LinkedIn, which hopefully you are since you're attending a LinkedIn topic, you can go to this linkedin.com/sales/SSI for social selling index and see what your current social selling index is, and based on the 4 components of the score, how you are doing. You can see that finding the right people is very low for me right now because I do not spend a lot of time lately trying to find and connect with more people. Every Saturday, I typically vote in Jeremy Neal's poll. He is a recruiter and he encourages people in his network to ask if they'd like to be featured in his poll. And then every week he tags everybody, and it's usually 100 to 150 professionals that he tags, and features us in his poll for the next week. And then the poll is open for a week, so you can vote, and you are encouraged to put a comment introducing yourself and to connect with everybody else on that. What I have found with LinkedIn personally, and your results or talking to other people, you may find different theories on this or results, is when I go to my network at the top, and I go to my connections here, you'll see I have over 11,000 connections. So many of the people that I have connected with are within the last couple days. But this is, for me, a lot more people than I would normally request to connect with. And the main reason that I don't spend a lot of my time on LinkedIn trying to connect with other people is that I feel like I see a lot of those invitations just sit there. So if I show all my invitations, I have 120 that are from people that I have something in common with. So I have to go through these and see that I've got some MCTs that I might want to connect with. I've got somebody, it looks like here, that's reaching out because she's a tech strategist. I've got somebody that's a veteran. So I make a decision about these myself. But if I look at my sent invitations, I have sent only 101 invitations to people. So that's why I get such a low score, because I'm not spending a lot of time trying to connect with other people on LinkedIn. The main reason that I have not continued to try to connect actively is because it takes a lot of time to send people an individualized request. And then if they don't respond, all that time that I invested in writing them something, looking up and researching them is not necessarily a return on the investment of time that I spent to request to connect with them. And I have a pretty good network of people already. So if I were still trying to grow my network from maybe where I started, which might have been over 500 connections, but under 1,000, I might have had a lot more of a focus on inviting people from companies that I want to connect with, or I spent a lot of time not only connecting with people that I worked with in the past at Microsoft, but that were former Microsoft. So when you're looking for people to connect with, when you do a search on LinkedIn, one of the options, and these may show up differently if you have LinkedIn Premium versus not having LinkedIn Premium. I can search for nobody, search for blank with people, but then I can actually go into all filters, and I can say that I'm looking for people that worked at Microsoft and that are in the United States. But I can also say, because I'm in charge of the Microsoft alumni, that people that used to work at Microsoft are my interest. And I can see that I have this whole list of people, both locally from Chicago as well as from Maryland and elsewhere, to connect with. And many of these people are second connections to me. So if I wanted to spend a little more investment of time, this is a perfect place to come on LinkedIn, is to do a search, focus it on people, and then focus it on whatever types of people you're trying to connect with. Are they MVPs? Are they into a certain school or employer? Are they from a certain place? I spent a lot of time trying to connect with Microsoft Learn student ambassadors. Under the mvp.microsoft.com, which stands for Most Valuable Professional website, I'll put that in the chat just in case anybody doesn't have it. Ayaka and I are both MVPs, Most Valuable Professionals. They have also introduced student ambassadors. And in a similar way, I make this bigger so everybody can see what I'm doing here. In a similar way to how I was able to search LinkedIn for people I had interest in connecting with, I can also search for student ambassadors that I'd like to connect with. And so one of my options for connecting with these student ambassadors is to choose the country these student ambassadors are from. So if I come down to Japan and I choose student ambassadors from Japan, two people show up. A doctoral student who's in the beta level of the student ambassador program and a gold student ambassador. And then I can go into the profile, I can see more information about them, and I can see what social networks they have decided to share as a student ambassador. So this one has Facebook and GitHub. The other one only has GitHub. If I search for country and region of United Kingdom and Japan, we get a couple other student ambassadors, including Ryan, who I met in London. So I reached out to Ryan on LinkedIn and I said, hey, a few of us are going to LinkedIn in London. Would you be interested in attending? And Ryan said, yeah, I'd be interested. And I'd also have interest in maybe inviting some other people with. So my messaging between Ryan and myself started back with a discussion of, looking forward to getting together. Here's where the LinkedIn office is. And he added a few people to the invite. So we met in person in London, England, just because of the power of LinkedIn. Excellent, thank you. Yes, I believe I got all of the people that were sitting as invites from this particular session. And I typically look through my invites for other network connections. So thank you for sending one. That's a perfect example of how they have a tendency to sit there until you actually look at who has requested to be part of your network. The other thing that I found out about LinkedIn from a friend, Noelle Silver, who is now Noelle Russell. She got married. Noelle hit the 30,000 connections, but Noelle has over 50,000 followers on LinkedIn, a lot more than I have. And Noelle is an MVP in AI, and she's an internationally known speaker. on artificial intelligence. And what Noelle posted somewhat recently, so we might be able to go back and find it depending on how often she posts, is a post with a picture of her, so we might be able to search for images. And the image is right here. She's crying. And she says she's devastated because she just hit the limit, which is 30,000 connections. So if you've ever wondered, what is the limit to how many people I can connect with directly on LinkedIn? There is a limit, folks, and it's 30,000. However, there is no limit, as you can see by Noelle or other, celebrities or CEOs or other types of notable people. There's no limit on followers. You can have millions of followers if you become that popular. So it's very easy to do this. The other thing that I discovered using LinkedIn recently, and the other reason I'm kind of excited that I get to rewrite my book, is that post impressions, the posts that have done the best, are still tracked by LinkedIn. You can get to your daily statistics. So I can see that Friday was a pretty good day, Saturday was pretty good, and Sunday, which just started about an hour ago, has plummeted because it's the very beginning of the day and I haven't posted anything since they consider this Sunday. This is in GMT time or UTC time. But the most popular posts that I've had in the last 7 days, the one about speaking today, one about a Impressa AI and Miri Rodriguez, and one about McDonald's, are not as popular as a post that I made. We go back to my profile here and look at comments. Some of the comments that I've made on posts have very small numbers, but several of these posts have racked up way more impressions or people that have seen the posts than I get from other interactions on LinkedIn. So I'm going to scroll back here kind of quick, folks. I hope you don't get dizzy. If you want to look away from the screen for a moment, feel free. Let's see if I can get past all the ladies in text posts that I did recently for today. Show more results keeps on coming up. Here we go. We're getting past it. So I can see that these are fairly low engagement comments. But then here I have a 17. Here I have a 25. Here I have a 22. 40. Here I have one that got 13. And if I go back far enough, or if I search for this post, there's a post that somebody made about PowerPoint less than a week ago. And they said, rip PowerPoint. PowerPoint's dead. PowerPoint's going away. Nobody's going to use PowerPoint. And that single post got over 2,000 impressions. Here's one from Paul. Paul, usually I get a lot of impressions. 189 impressions on one simple post to his post as a comment. So LinkedIn has started tracking your comments as well as your posts. And these show up under your profile and in your analytics. So your analytics section shows post search appearances, some other information, and then I believe it's under your analytics. Let's see if we can navigate there. That one doesn't exist. I'll have to get the exact location. Might be analytics and search or comments. Let's see if I can remember what it is. Yeah, it's not that. Let's see if we can find the RIP PowerPoint post. You can see I did a search for that recently, so it keeps your recent searches. It was a post from somebody. I can do date posted, sort by, content type. It was an image post. It was one very similar to this. So this is somebody that I'm not following. I can follow them. But it was one of those RIP PowerPoint posts that was very popular. This might be it. It was one with a tombstone graphic. And then I made a comment on that, and I got over 2,000 views of my comment on this particular post. So if your goal is to get noticed on LinkedIn, sometimes the easiest way to do that is just by finding somebody that posted something else that was popular and making a comment. This was posted 7 months ago. So chances of it getting a lot of attention today are probably lower. That's why you can do the date posted and do something like the past week or past month to see posts that are recent. So if you're looking for interaction and growing your network, there are 2 ways to go about it. What I used to do as a Microsoft certified trainer was I searched for things that my students or my delegates, my attendees might be doing, like Microsoft certification, or the verbiage that is used when somebody posts that they got a Microsoft certified credential. Because I figured these were my target audience, right? As a trainer, I want to connect with other students. So finding ways to seek out students, to maybe follow that student, which sends or that member on LinkedIn, and that sends a signal to them that, hey, Dan Ray is looking at your activity. If they are paying attention to that, if they aren't, they're unlimited. It's very quick, it's very easy to do. And then I can also look at who's following me. So one of the things you can do under network, besides look at your connections, is you can actually under analytics look at your followers. So the same place that we were looking for the post information, I can also look at my followers and who I'm following. There used to be a quick place to go to see this list, but on my phone, I think it's easier for me to find my followers than it appears to be. Here it is, following and followers under my network. So there's my following. I'm following over 1,000 people. I think the last time I saw the actual number, I'm following over like 68,000 people. So I'm following almost everybody that even piques my interest. If they're a trainer, if they're an MVP, if they worked for Microsoft, if they post about Microsoft, if they post really helpful information about LinkedIn, I am likely to follow them because it's quick, it's easy, and it's one way. However, the amount of people that I am followed by is larger than the people that I am connected with. So there's about 17,000, over 17,500. And then I can look at who's following me, and I can follow back these people that at first glance I seem to have some interest in. I can also right click on these and open a new tab. This is another trick that I use on LinkedIn all the time. You can do this for up to about 10 profiles at a time, or LinkedIn thinks you're doing something automated and it slows you down, or it causes you to re-log in or confirm that you're a person and not a bot. But you can do that about 10 times. And then I could go in and look at the person, see who they're connected to, and decide if I really want to connect with the person or not. So it's fairly easy to do. Now, other things that I have discovered on LinkedIn is that several of the posts that I have done where I haven't posted immediately after the post that I just did have done sometimes better than when I post multiple times a day or even a week. So if I look at those top posts, one was 3 days ago, one was 4 days ago, and one was 6 days ago. So the posts in between those haven't been as popular as these 3 posts that I have posted sometime in the last week. If I go back and I look at my top performing posts for a longer period of time, like the past 90 days, we'll see that cumulatively, I had a post that had over 16,000 impressions. And it was a post about Mini Sudoku, the new LinkedIn daily game, on day 1 when it was released. And the reason it went viral, or somewhat large, was because Mini Sudoku, the page by LinkedIn, the official page, with over 2.5 million followers, approaching 3 million followers, commented on my post. So we talked about how maybe commenting is better for you than just going ahead and writing posts. Here's a post impression that has over 1,000 impressions where I replied to the post from the Mini Sudoku page. So you might be wondering, if you run a community or if you run a page, how do you do that? How do I post on behalf of somebody else instead of just myself? So if I find one of those RIP PowerPoint posts, it's something I'm passionate about. I think PowerPoint is not resting in peace. I can either comment and do things by myself, or I can comment on pages that I'm actively involved with. And then my comment from that page could be something positive. Thanks for sharing. PowerPoint, not just slides, research pulled in real time, market data, custom visuals and diagrams, restructured and flowed, optimized for VCs. PowerPoint has some great new templates at create.microsoft.com, and AI infused with Copilot for Microsoft 365. And so starting off with something acknowledging their post, and then bringing to their attention and the people that they have in their network about some things that people might not be aware of with PowerPoint. So you can decide how you comment, what you comment on. You can decide how often you post. You can decide how often you connect with people or follow people on LinkedIn. But ultimately, the goal is to maybe grow your audience. So the other thing as a trainer if you are interested, the Microsoft Speaker Hub is a company page that I created along with a number of other MCTs and MVPs. And I think we set it up as, where did we do this? I think you might be able to follow based on the company page ID versus the name. See if that works for folks. I think the page name is MSFT Speakers, if memory serves. Yep. So if the number doesn't work, that link should. Yep. Maybe the page number or the code doesn't work, but this page does. The Microsoft Speakers Hub is a community of over 3,300 followers. So the benefit from my perspective is a built-in audience of others that are technical and that might have interest in learning from you. So if your goal is to make sure people see your posts, people see your information, people attend your meetings, this is one of the tools that I have used and built along with others on LinkedIn. So not only my profile and my own newsletter, but we have a newsletter, maybe 3 newsletters out on the Microsoft Speakers Hub that other people can contribute to. And then there's other people that have created pages, and I've created other pages as well. I did ask in the form about if people had used newsletters. So let's see if I can get LinkedIn to respond to me here. I'll show you my newsletter. So I had written a number of articles. Articles were nice because they're easier to find. They are indexed from the internet's perspective, not just from my local computer and my LinkedIn network. But I renamed my newsletter AI and LinkedIn Profile Showcase. I've had about 165 editions so far over about 3 years. And you'll notice that I have about 6,300 subscribers. So I was early to the newsletters feature when it was released. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Let me share it again. So here's where my newsletter for the AI and LinkedIn profile showcase is. And it's got about 6,300 followers. The reason I believe that I got so many followers was I have a lot of people that I'm connected with. And then I was also early to the newsletter process on LinkedIn. So jumping on new features that LinkedIn is showcasing is one way to find out how popular different things are on LinkedIn. So one thing that I learned from doing this was that it seems like this is a pretty popular feature that LinkedIn offers. So today, everyone, we have talked about LinkedIn. We've talked about the book that I am in the process of updating. I believe our new title for the book is going to be, we haven't 100% settled on the final title, but it's going to be something around posting less often than daily, and then maybe commenting every day, because comments allow you to engage the people that you have interest in connecting with, whether they be connections or following you following them. And commenting, I have not found any kind of downside to. Some comments get very, very popular and get very, very big numbers. Same thing with posts. The more people that are in your network, or the more people that comment from your network, that brings the post to the attention of those people in their networks. So it has this tendency to grow exponentially. If anybody has questions as we wrap up, feel free to put them in the chat here. Feel free to fill out the survey that I shared at the beginning. And with that, Microsoft has learn.microsoft.com. And again, thank you to all of our sponsors for Tech Boost Summit 2025. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I appreciate all the folks that have attended this session or that watch the recording later. So I will take a quick look at the survey again to see if we had anybody else fill it out or pose a question there. As we wrap up our session for today. My phone does not seem to want to let me log in right now to my form. It's got two accounts and it's not letting me log in as the account that has the access to the form. So let's see if my computer will do me one better. Let me log in as my account. Let's see if others have filled in the survey here. Got to log in as another account. I used an account, a demo account I set up for Satya Nadella in a demo environment. So you're not really speaking to Satya when you fill out this form, sorry to say. But I am able to, from that form, see other responses and get to information. So our average is over 10 years. And some people are posting, it looks like weekly, and some people are posting monthly. And then how can you get corporate training requests from LinkedIn? You can get more details here. Maybe after a session, how to increase the number of connections. Yeah, the main thing that I have done is when I have been trying to increase my connections, I have tried to be visible on LinkedIn. So when somebody sees me, they're more likely to want to connect. And then I sent a number of connections, and I sent those targeted. So I looked for other trainers if that was my interest. I looked at other people that worked for training companies if that was my interest. I looked for a lot of different ways to grow my network. Yeah. And then what do you think about posting with video? How valuable is it? Videos have seemed to be, from my perspective, one of the growing areas that both LinkedIn is investing in, and that is getting attention for people. Live videos, the same thing. One thing that I have found is when I'm reading posts now, unless they have a picture or some other kind of engagement, I wonder, did somebody actually write this post, or how much of this is AI that I'm seeing? So one way to combat that I have found is video. Video still, especially if it's a person and I know the person, is much more likely that they were involved in the creation of that video. So I would say video, especially as a trainer, might be a really important thing. And then how to get corporate training requests with LinkedIn posts. One thing that I found was the MVP award did me a great bit of notoriety in the tech world. So if you have interest in the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional program, feel free to reach out to myself. IACA is an MVP. There are several other MVPs that I'm sure you may have come across. You can search for MVPs if you don't know them. So you can get to know them by just searching saying I want to find MVPs instead of student ambassadors. And then you can decide if it's in a particular award category, part of the world. So one thing that I did early on was I started connecting with other M365 MVPs before I was an MVP. These led to a lot of the training opportunities that I got. The other thing I did was I found training companies, and I decided to connect with not only the companies, but people within the companies. So if we go back to my LinkedIn and we look at companies like Netcom Learning, Netcom Learning was one of the first companies when I went independent. First time, I think this was maybe before I left or started at Microsoft, I worked at Netcom, and I did some seminars, webinars for them. And then that led to training opportunities. And so one thing that you can do is just become, better known, build your network, build the people that you know. But when I started with Netcom, I had met a couple people there. And now when I look at a company like Netcom and I look at the people and I look at the people I'm associated with that work there, you can either do it through this view or you can do it through the search view. It's a little easier to do through the search view. Because I can say people and then I can say that work at Netcom Learning and that are first connections to me. So what that does is narrows the list to just the people that I know really well at Netcom as opposed to everybody that says they work at Netcom. So obviously there's a couple sponsors on our sponsor sheet. So besides Netcom, it might be worthwhile to do this with Trainicate, Volt Edge Learning. GoDeploy is one of the sponsors, as well as one of the lab hosting companies for training. So if you're looking for opportunities for training, one thing that I would recommend is to think about where the people that you're looking for might be lurking on LinkedIn. So I connect with companies that I've had experience with, that I've come across other trainers from. I figure if there's other trainers that work with them, they're probably good companies to work with. And if you're referring to corporate direct training requests, many times it's figuring out like titles that people in those companies would have. So I used to do searches to look for people that had titles. Yep, thanks. Okay, well, feel free to follow up, folks. We're going to go ahead and finish at this point.